Colombia's Marxist rebel group has handed over another 30% of its weapons arsenal as part of a peace deal it signed with the government to end more than 52 years of war. It means the FARC have only 40% of its weapons remaining to hand over by next week. The FARC want to show the country and the world that we're closing a chapter in the history of our country and we're beginning to write another.
Que estamos cerrando una página de la historia de nuestro país y empezando a escribir otra,
the deadline was recently
la de la
extended
paz.
after logistical delays slowed the arrival of some of the group's 7,000 fighters to special demobilization zones. President Manuel Santos was due at the ceremony, which was held in the southwestern region of Cauca, but was unable to fly there due to bad weather. Under the accord, which was rejected in a public referendum but pushed through by the Congress, the FARC will now become a political party.
The UK and France working hand in hand against terrorism. British Prime Minister Theresa May and French President Emmanuel Macron are launching a campaign to fight online radicalization and push tech companies such as Facebook and Google to do more to remove extremist material from the internet. We've decided to take things further. We've been working on a very concrete action plan. Its main purpose is to strengthen the commitments and obligations of internet operators to delete content promoting hatred and terrorism across all sorts of media. On her first trip abroad since losing her majority in Parliament, May suggested the two leaders met for a working dinner before attending a friendly football match between France and England.
To ensure that the internet cannot be
Supporters at the Stade de France paid tribute to the victims of the recent attacks in Manchester and London by singing the British national anthem and observing a minute's silence.
An SOS about a deadly cholera epidemic in Yemen. It comes from charities, including the UN Children's Fund, which says half of more than 124,000 new cases in the war-torn country are children. A quarter of the more than 920 people who have died so far in the outbreak are also children.
Every day we have at least 5,000 to 10,000 newly reported cases throughout the country. That's unprecedented. That requires also an unprecedented, massive response from the authorities here, but also from the international community.
Save the Children Fund is also warning that the infection rate has tripled in a fortnight and thousands could die in the coming months, with 300,000 cases predicted. A lack of access to clean water and low supplies of medicine during 2 years of civil war have exacerbated the spread of cholera, which can kill within hours.
A desperate rescue operation is underway after this 7-story building collapsed in Kenya. At least 15 people are missing. The authorities say they'd asked the occupants to leave before the building came down in the eastern suburb of the capital, Nairobi. It collapsed overnight during heavy rainfall. A specialized team from the Kenyan Defence Force has been called in to help search through the rubble. There have been recent and similar building collapses in Kenya. 49 people died last year when another building collapsed during heavy rain in the early hours in a poor neighborhood of Nairobi.
The EU has launched a legal case against Hungary, the Czech Republic and Poland over their tough stance on taking in asylum seekers. Hungary and Poland have long refused to take in migrants under a 2015 relocation plan which was agreed by a qualified majority at EU level. The Czechs have taken in 12.
It is binding and mandatory for all member states to comply and implement according to the pledges they gave. The sanctions have somehow been defined by the infringement procedures without getting into details of what kind of sanctions they will be. but we can avoid it.
A centre-right Polish MEP told Euronews.
I think that we have to sit together and agree, and in a much more consensual way than enforcing on some member states decisions by other states who want to get rid of their problems while not recognizing and respecting the problems of others. This is not at all in the spirit of solidarity.
The three countries could face fines or other sanctions, but as our correspondent explains, there is a legal challenge in the works. The European Commission went ahead with this decision without waiting for the verdict from the European Court of Justice. It received complaints from Hungary and Slovakia against the quota system. The court is expected to give its first opinion, early in July. The European Parliament's chief Brexit negotiator, Guy Verhofstadt, says talks need to start as soon as possible. It follows the UK's election last week, which left Prime Minister Theresa May without a parliamentary majority.
I hope that the negotiations can start as fast as possible. I hope that they can start next week. And that is absolutely necessary to stop the uncertainty that exists for months now. Uncertainty for the citizens, UK citizens and European citizens.
A senior Tory MEP said the focus must be on securing the best deal possible for both sides.
Well, the Prime Minister's always been quite clear about this. She's never liked the terms hard Brexit, loose Brexit, clean Brexit, whatever. She's always said, I want the best Brexit. Some people I speak to say they want soft Brexit. They actually don't want the UK to leave at all. And some people say hard Brexit, it says no deal whatsoever. I think they will have to try and get some deal. So let's just see, let's get the best Brexit, best for the EU and the UK.
The deadline for negotiations is very important because the European Parliament has to give its final approval for the Brexit agreement. The deadline for that is March 2019 because the European elections will be held in June of that year and no British MEPs should be elected.
Hundreds of people, many of them children, are being treated for the effects of suspected food poisoning in Iraq. This is the Al-Khazar camp for people displaced by fighting in the city of Mosul. Officials say sickness broke out shortly after the iftar meal, breaking the fast for Ramadan. There are reports a child has died. The camp in Al-Khazar links Mosul with Erbil. It's home to people displaced by the offensive to dislodge ISIL fighters from Mosul. Heavy fighting is continuing in the west of the city. Iraqi forces, backed by a US-led coalition, launched an offensive last October to retake the city from ISIL. 1,000 militants remain under siege there, along with an estimated 100,000 civilians.
Televidente, non sta in uno spazio commerciale e ora non sta back e deporte con nostro collega Carl Reiter.
Diamond Scrap, situat net banda de supermercat.